A lot of playoff possibilities. We're going to be talking about it all and recapping the Raiders game all after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3, dominate.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. We're here talking some 49ers. Obviously, last week of the season, the 49ers have the 2 seed. Got a lot of chances to move up, some chances to move down as well. So we're going to be breaking through the entire playoff scenario, what's going to go on with the 49ers overall. But before we get to that, we've got to talk about a topic that is kind of laying heavy with me right now, and that is the Damar Hamlin situation that we all saw on Monday night. On Monday night, I was actually scheduled to do a live stream. Prior to the game, I had scheduled that live stream. Obviously, ended up not doing it because of the situation. Really a scary situation, one that hits home for me. Damar Hamlin, a young guy just like myself, to see someone go through that. I'd never seen that before. I know a lot of people talking about the soccer player Christian Eriksen going through cardiac arrest. This is the first one that I've really seen, and this one was a scary one, really, especially with the chance that someone was going to lose their life. And so I'm glad the both teams didn't play the rest of that game. Would not have been fair to both players, both coaches. Glad to see that initiative taken. And really, I'm just praying the best for Damar Hamlin. It seems like that situation might be heading in the positive direction, which is a great sign for Damar Hamlin and his family. But thoughts and prayers go out to Damar Hamlin. Thoughts and prayers to go out to his family and everybody involved over there, praying that he gets back. And really, I know it's probably going to be a long journey ahead, but I wonder, what does the NFL do after this? But none of that matters. The only thing that matters is the health of Damar Hamlin. I love how really there's so many good people in the world, the amount of outpouring support for him. I'm in that situation. And so really, thoughts and prayers go out to him. Now, let's get it back to the 49ers with the 49ers and the Raiders game. This past weekend, the 49ers defeated the Raiders 37-34. It was a very close game. And I don't know if many expected that. I personally did not. I thought the end score would be 31-10. Clearly not the case. The 49ers ended up scoring 37 points, so eclipsing the amount that I thought. But the Raiders scored 34 in in return. Got to start by talking about the one and only Brock Purdy. Obviously, Brock Purdy, the guy that everybody wants to talk about. A lot of talk about the 2023 quarterback situation. Let's keep it focused on 2022. If I'm being honest, though, Brock Purdy, I did not think he had a great game in this one. I thought he had his fair share of struggles, several missed opportunities for the offense, and that's the reason that they were coming back from behind and trying to win this ball game in the fourth quarter and in overtime. They eventually did, but Brock Purdy, not a great performance. Excuse me. One of the issues with Purdy, it was a reluctance to make those downfield throws early. There were a lot of those swirl routes. The swirl routes, essentially a 15-yard, 20-yard curl route in between the levels of the intermediate level where the linebackers are and the safeties. It's right on the seam. Purdy, that throw was available a couple of times in this game, and clearly that throw wasn't made a couple of times. Brandon Ayuk was open on one of them. Jawan Jennings was open on another one of them. I thought that throw should have been made a couple of times. And so to me, it was a reluctance to throw downfield. I think it's a variety of two factors. I think it's really Purdy potentially being uncomfortable with his arm strength, but also him understanding the value of his check down. Some of the plays that Purdy could have thrown downfield, he did throw to the check down, and Christian McCaffrey made the most of the situation. But in the playoffs, teams, you're going to need to be able to throw that downfield ball. He didn't in several situations. Moving forward in some of those situations, that deep crosser was there a couple of times. Jawan Jennings, or sorry, not Jawan Jennings, George Kittle had 2 deep crossers that were available. Or sorry, George Kittle had 1, Jawan Jennings had 1, and Kyle Shanahan dials it up perfectly. He sets up a shot play against single high coverage that forces the safety to take care of the deep pass, and in between the linebackers and the safeties is this deep crossing route. where it's uncovered against zone coverage and or sorry, it's uncovered as the receiver goes across the field and it's an easy throw. Purdy had George Kittle open on one, Jawan Jennings open on one, didn't hit him on either throw. And so you've got to be able to hit these 20-yard plays because what happens, I've said this before when Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback, when you don't hit the 20-yard plays, you're going to have to hit 4 or 5-yard plays 4 more times in order to sustain the drive. Makes execution harder, makes it harder to score. And that's an issue, especially when you go up against better caliber defenses than the Las Vegas Raiders. And so those were a couple of the issues that Purdy had. Now, the one thing I will say on Purdy, uh, he did show a propensity for uh, making some progress with his mistakes. On that swirl route, like I said, the 15-20 yard curl route, he did throw it to Jawan Jennings in the second half after missing one to Jennings, one to Ayuk in the first half. So it shows the development inside the game and the deep crosser. He threw one to Jennings after missing one to Jennings and one to George Kittle in the first half. So it just shows some development. But there needs to be less inconsistency than there was in this game. Not a great game in terms of consistency. We also know that how Purdy missed Jawan Jennings on the touchdown. Jennings had a step, Purdy underthrew it. Tough catch. Jennings could have potentially caught it, but a really tough catch, and that ended up being an incompletion when it should have been a touchdown. Kittle also had one where he had his receiver beat, and that should have been a touchdown. And instead, Purdy looked for the back shoulder, clearly not on the same page with Kittle a step ahead. Jordan Mason had a curl, sorry, not a curl, a wheel route that was a potential, a possibility. Purdy didn't look. Purdy didn't look to throw that one. Later on, he looked to throw to Kittle, just missed him on that wheel route. And then you talk about the Tyler Croft one in the red zone where Purdy was scrambling to his left, could have hit Croft, instead went shorter to Ayuk. Got to push the ball downfield. That's the main thing I came away with Purdy. But once again, Purdy, the main positive, showcased the athleticism. He got out of a couple of sacks, made moves on the run. Sometimes he even looked a little more comfortable on the run than out of the pocket. But yeah, that was the main positive. Not a great performance. I graded it a C minus in my grades article. But moving on to the running backs. As I said earlier this week, I was wondering whether it would be a running back rotation, how the running backs would look, because Jordan Mason was off the injury report coming into the weekend. Was he going to be a little limited? Were the 49ers going to be cautious with him? Would that mean Tyron Davis-Price gets more carries? Or would that mean that Christian McCaffrey get a boatload of carries instead? And I think it was more so the third option. The 49ers looked to go to McCaffrey heavily. And in my opinion, I think it was more so Purdy rather than, I mean, checkdowns are never necessarily a first read, but Purdy looked for the checkdown a lot in this game. That's why McCaffrey ended up getting 6 catches for 72 yards in this game on 9 targets, all of which ranked second amongst 49ers players in the receiving game behind Brandon Ayuk, who had 9 catches, 101 yards, and 1 touchdown on 12 targets. We'll get to him in a minute. But McCaffrey had 19 carries of the 27 carries in the game. 2 of those carries were Brock Purdy. No other player had more than 2 carries. Jordan Mason had 2, one early in the game, one as the game go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter. A lot of McCaffrey in this game. Now, McCaffrey is your best player. I'm always of the advocate, play your best players. So I'm not necessarily mad at it, but you do want to see potentially a little more usage from the backups. Luckily enough for the 49ers, Elijah Mitchell seems like he could return this week. That would be huge for the 49ers because last time Mitchell returned, Kyle Shanahan looked like he trusted Mitchell a lot, gave him 18 carries in his first game back. And so that might be huge if Mitchell can sustain healthiness throughout the entirety of the season, include like majority of the postseason, because Mitchell has shown that he can take the workload on. It's just health. That health has been the issue. He's effective when he gets the workload, averaging over 6 yards a carry in the limited amount of carries that he's had thus far. But McCaffrey had a great game. In the running game, it was very efficient. 121 yards, 19 carries, 6.4 yards per carry, and the touchdown. It was a great game for McCaffrey because the offensive line really stepped up big time. Huge holes in the offensive line, huge holes in the running game that were created by the offensive line. It was really, really helpful for McCaffrey. And McCaffrey also broke a couple of tackles when it looked like it would be a dead play, showcasing that elusiveness. That was a huge part of the game for McCaffrey. And so that's a good job by him. Good job by the offensive line. When both can work synonymously and efficiently, it's a huge game in the running game for the 49ers, as it was on what was it, Sunday? No, yeah, Sunday, New Year's Day. Backup running back Jordan Mason, 2 carries, 13 yards in the touchdown. Limited carries. Was it because of the injury? We don't know. But the one thing that I will say, the Mason carry that he got for the 14-yard touchdown just showcases what Mason is, a powerful runner that runs downhill. Great blocking once again, and Mason did the rest as he got inside the 5-yard line, diving for the touchdown. Huge score for Jordan Mason, huge score for the 49ers in that situation. So you got great production from your running backs. Thought that was an A grade for the position. All right. Moving on, though, to the wide receivers. This one was an interesting one for the wide receivers, I thought. I thought the wide receivers had an up and down game in this one. When you look at the stat sheet, you might disagree with me. Brandon Ayuk, obviously a huge game, 9 catches, 101 yards, 12 targets, and a touchdown. And he was really the guy down the line. But go back, listen to what you heard from Kyle Shanahan, and then check it with what you saw on tape. Not the best first half for Brandon Ayuk. Not the best early start. Ayuk had a drop early. Ayuk also had a penalty early. And really, the 49ers offense, they were behind in this game for a little bit. More so, I think it was more so on the defense. But the offense, not doing as good. Ayuk wasn't targeted as heavily. But then you go down the stretch, Ayuk showed that he can be a number one receiver in that stretch. How? The ball was going to him consistently. He consistently was getting open with his route running. He runs great slant routes. He's able to sell it very well and then get the ball out to, or sorry, get the step on his defensive back so that Purdy can get the ball out and now you can make the play. Saw a lot of those type of plays down the line. Uh, so great drive overall, or great drives at the end of the game for Ayuk. He really was the 49ers offense on that potential game-winning drive at the end of the fourth quarter. Got them down to the, what was it, 30-yard line for, or 20 something yard line for Robbie Gould to attempt a 40-yard field goal, which he missed. So great job for Ayuk overall. In the second half, not so much as the first half. Jennings was okay. Uh, Jennings had 2 catches, 46 yards. It's a Jennings type of game. He had a potential touchdown, which Purdy underthrew, so could have added for some more yards. Danny Gray got his first action as well. Got an end around for 9 yards. Maybe you see a little more of that. I know it's without Deebo Samuel, who normally takes those, but Gray has the speed. Got 9 yards on the play. Pretty solid play there. Could have potentially gotten more tripped up. Could have taken a different angle, but you're going to take 9 yards when you got 9 yards. Ray-Ray McCloud, another guy who has shown that he can make plays both out of the punt return game and as a receiver. Got a screen pass and took it 42 yards, showcasing the explosiveness. Really, he got off immediately. The get off was great, and he was just out in space. Works well in space. 42-yard play continues to make that one play a game that shows to be very impactful for the 49ers. Overall, B grade for the 49ers with the receivers. Up and down game for some, but a solid game overall. So I'd say it's a pretty solid game for the 49ers receiving core. Tight ends for George were George Kittle and Tyler Kroft mainly in this game. So with the tight ends, let's start with George Kittle. Kittle, not a big receiving game. 4 catches, 23 yards. You might think, well, that's not too talented, not too great. Well, when you look at it, really, Kittle had 2 more opportunities on other plays. He had the potential touchdown catch, which Purdy tried to throw back shoulder on instead of throwing it over in front of him next to the pylon, which could have been a touchdown. Then he also had the deep crosser in which he could have gotten a lot of yards after the catch because he was wide open. Purdy had hit him on that deep crosser before, didn't hit him in this game, even though he looked at Kittle's direction before checking it down. So 4 catches, 23 yards, not great on paper, but a little misleading as well. As a blocker, though, George Kittle was fantastic. George Kittle really helped pave the way on some of those runs towards the boundaries, or to the runs in between the tackles and the guard. Helped pave the way, be it as a pulling blocker or as an inline blocker. Great job by George Kittle in the blocking game. Tyler Kroft as well. He's been a valuable blocker for the 49ers. As I was saying, he's been a valuable blocker for the 49ers, and he's set up several McCaffrey runs. He's been a good number two to George Kittle, a solid 1-2 punch there for the 49ers at the tight end position, not only in the receiving game, but also in the running game. And so that's very important at the position, one that the 49ers really, really covet. Moving on, we've got the offensive line. Spoke on them a little earlier. Let's get to it. Excuse me, gotta love my water. But continuing on with the offensive line, the 49ers really had one of their better games with the offensive line in this one, continuing their string of good performances from the games before. Max Crosby was obviously coming in. Kyle Shanahan, D'Amico Ryans, Brock Purdy praised him, said he was the second best defensive player thus far, behind obviously Nick Bosa this year. Crosby was lined up against Mike McGlinchey a lot, and Mike McGlinchey really held his own. So that was a good part. Mike McGlinchey doing his job against Max Crosby, really showing his talent over the last couple of games. Some of the mental mistakes are still there, but you're liking what you're seeing out of Mike McGlinchey. Other players, Aaron Banks left with an injury. Seems like he'll miss one game, but hopefully it's not too long. Apart from that, Trent Williams had a penalty, false start, and a holding penalty. I think it was on the same drive, but not too great. Overall, though, Trent Williams did a good job as well. It was a good job, a good performance overall from the 49ers offensive line, able to set up the run game. Run game did really well, 170 yards on the ground, over 6 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. In the passing game, Brock Purdy wasn't touched once. It was a 0 sack performance. So good job by Brock Purdy. Good job by the offensive line really in both facets of the game, albeit against the Raiders defensive line that isn't necessarily as talented, especially without Chandler Jones. But Max Crosby is Max Crosby. Gotta respect that, especially when he's put in one-on-one situations. But we got to move on. Defensive side, the side that really is the side that you got to talk about in this game. So let's start with the defensive line in this game. Defensive line, yeah. So defensive line, talking about them overall, no sack performance for the defensive line. That was an interesting part. The difference between Jarrett Stidham and the difference between Derek Carr was the mobility. Stidham was able to be mobile, and the 49ers, they didn't have a bad game. 26 pressures. Nick Bosa led them with 10 pressures. T.Y. McGill had 4. Really a good, well-rounded performance by the 49ers, but 0 sacks on the day. Instead, it was really the Jarrett Stidham show, and that was a good part. Oh my God. As I'm talking about the defensive line, I see this will come in. Guys, if you are subscribed to Last Second Sports, unsubscribe. It's actually not a real person. It's a fake guy behind the camera. I know you guys are shocked by that. He doesn't respond to text messages. He doesn't do a lot. But I'm kidding. Got to give some love to my guy, Jesse. Always appreciate, always stepping up, always appreciating the rest of the community. So thank you for tuning in, especially because it's pretty late at your time. So appreciate you. One of the best YouTube channels out there. You got to be sure you subscribe to Last Second Sports. I've even seen they're doing a second YouTube channel, so don't miss that out. They do a lot of widespread NFL content. Pretty fun. So go check out Last Second Sports. That's the last time I'm ever going to plug him on my channel because he doesn't respond to any messages except for the last few. But moving forward with the defensive line, like I was saying, 10 pressures from Nick Bosa, 26 as a team, 4 from T.Y. McGill. You'd expect some sacks, but no, 0 sacks on the day. Not necessarily the greatest performance from the defensive line in terms of getting to the quarterback and finishing, although they made Jarrett Stidham move out of the pocket. The only difference, Stidham is not that uncomfortable out of the pocket. Derek Carr does not like to go out of the pocket. Stidham likes to move around. He was able to make plays with his feet, similar to Brock Purdy in extending plays with that sneaky athleticism of his, and then utilizing his arm strength. As a result, Stidham had a solid game in this one, 365 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, had the 2 interceptions, but a solid game for a guy who really was the backup for the entire year and then ended up, going off against one of the league's best defense and performing like that. It was a wake-up call for the defense. And, the 49ers defense, it's predicated on this defensive line. And when you can't get necessarily the full production out of the defensive line in terms of sacks, it's going to be tough to really rely on every single level when all levels aren't clicking at a high level. This performance in terms of passing yards, 365 yards. That's the second most the 49ers have given up all season. Just behind the Kansas City Chiefs. They gave up 417 in that game. Second most total yards as well. Gave up 529 to the Chiefs, 500 yards to the Las Vegas Raiders. More than 150 more than the third highest, which surprisingly was the Washington Commanders, who they faced last weekend. So, yeah, not too great. You talk about the linebackers now. Let's get up there. There we go. The linebackers did up and down. Dre Greenlaw exited the game with an injury, and then Fred Warner was there. Azeez Al-Shaair was there. Fred Warner, not a great game. Had a penalty for pass interference. Also had a face mask penalty that gave the Raiders a drive that ended up extending to a Davante Adams 60-plus yard touchdown. And so not the best day for the linebackers as well, which is tough because the linebackers have been one of the 49ers' best position groups with two potential all-pro players. Just not the best day overall for the linebackers in this one. And part of it has to do with the injury to Dre Greenlaw in this game. And so, you got to take it as you see it. Fred Warner did have a solid game in the run in run defense, 3 run stops, which led the team, but also 2 missed tackles in the running game when having the ability for a run stop. So up and down performance for Fred Warner, not necessarily what you want to see from one of the better linebackers overall. Yeah, Bash says it. That face mask on Renfro killed me. It was a 3rd and 12. It was a screenplay against a guy who, while he's small and shifty, isn't going to get the 12 yards with the way the 49ers converged. Warner, inadvertent but unnecessary face mask there that killed him because a coverage must happen a couple of plays later with the Davante Adams touchdown after Jarrett Stidham extended the play. He took a shot on that one too, so props to Stidham there. But that's from the linebackers. We got to talk about the cornerbacks because this is the biggest talk really. The cornerbacks, how are they doing? And really, how are they doing the last few weeks? Deommodore Lenoir got cooked in this game. He didn't have a great performance when you look at the film. He got burnt a couple of times. And really, unfavorable situation with Davante Adams. But it's not just that it has been this one week. Deommodore Lenoir hasn't been necessarily one of the better quarterbacks for the 49ers as of late. Jimmy Ward has been stepping up. Travis Ward has been playing at a high level. Lenoir has been kind of the weaker spot in the cornerback room for the 49ers, as you'd expect as well. But Lenoir, not able to make too many plays, targeted a lot, gave up over 100 yards of 100 passing yards in this game on 5 catches. And so not the best game for Lenoir. I wonder how do opposing offenses treat Lenoir in the playoffs, how much they'll target him, and what's the 49ers solution? Because they've had coverage busts with a guy who we'll mention soon, Talanoa Hufanga, and now Deommodore Lenoir, the guy opposite of Travis Ward, not having a great string of games recently. Travis Ward was all right. He played one fade route really perfectly on Davante Adams, but Jarrett Stidham delivered a great ball. Adams made a great play. It was a great touchdown over there. But I was fine with Travis Ward's performance. But one thing that needs to really stop is the explosive plays. The explosive plays have been there the last 2 weeks, and that's unacceptable from a team that really hadn't allowed explosive plays in the weeks past. The 49ers have been one of the best at limiting explosive plays. Some of that you can place on the safeties, some of that you can place on the cornerbacks, but the last 2 weeks, Terry McLaurin, the Washington Commanders, they got a couple. That's why you saw the 350 yards overall and the 270 passing yards last week. This week, 365 passing yards. Huge game from Jarrett Stidham, a guy who you wouldn't expect necessarily to produce the huge game, and a lot of different explosive plays given up. So that's something the 49ers will need to fix. Safeties, I talked about them a little bit, but overall with the safeties, you do know that Talanoa Hufanga has been up and down with his play recently. He's been all right, but you do hope that he kind of returns. I see Bash said it here, and I think it's a good comment. You hope that Hufanga gets back to the high level of play we saw earlier in the season. This is why in my Pro Bowl video, I didn't necessarily know if Hufanga earned his Pro Bowl consideration with his late level of play. He's been a very electric player, a great player to watch, and a great storyline. I just didn't know if he was a Pro Bowl player based on what we saw the last few weeks because of the number of coverage busts, because of the passer rating when thrown at him, because of things like that, and that it's reciprocated on film. Another coverage bust this week, although it was a good play from Josh McDaniels to exploit the coverage that the 49ers are running. Hopefully Hufanga does get back to that level and really finishes plays in the run game while also making plays in the passing game as a defensive back. But Deshaun Gibson has been fairly good. Gave up a catch as well in this game, but he's been fairly good this year. Obviously, a solid signing. You hope, though, that both players can communicate well and continue to play at the level they were playing early in the season when they were lauded as some of the better safety tandems in the NFL. But with all the grades kind of stuff done, let's get to the real talk, the playoff talk, because the 49ers currently have the number 2 seed, and their seeding is not locked. They have a couple of possibilities that could happen. The 49ers could drop to 3 or climb up to 1. So let's go through the playoff scenarios. Let's say it's really what the likeliest is, ending up at the 2 seed. How would that happen? Well, they'd have to beat the Cardinals, who they currently are 14-point favorites over because the Cardinals don't have DeAndre Hopkins in this game. They also are starting their 4th quarterback of the year, David Blough, or Blau, however you wish to pronounce it. My apologies. But they're starting their 4th quarterback, down their top receiver. Not necessarily the great recipe for success, which is why the 49ers are favored. So they'd have to win the game, but the Philadelphia Eagles would have to beat the New York Giants. At the moment, they're favored 14 points as well over the New York Giants. So if Philly wins and San Francisco wins, San Francisco's the 2 seed. They would then face one of 3 teams. They could face the Packers, they could face the Seahawks, they could face the Lions. The Packers are the easiest way. They have the easiest path to making the playoffs. How is that? Well, if they win against the Lions on Sunday Night Football, they're in the playoffs regardless. Now, if the Seahawks win and the Lions defeat the Packers, the Seahawks make the playoffs, and the Lions and Packers are eliminated. The way for the Lions to make it is the Seahawks need to lose in their afternoon game against the Los Angeles Rams, and the Packers need to lose to the Lions. If the Lions win and the Seahawks lose, the Lions are the 7th seed. At the moment, the most likely scenario, 49ers-Packers week 1 situation. Now, if the 49ers have that, that's a worst-case scenario for them. The Packers are the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in football, one of the hottest teams in the NFC, having won several of their last few games, and they're coming in with a quarterback playing some good football at the moment, and their team really rounding it out altogether. Their defense has been playing better. Their offense has been up to par. They've been playing well. And so if they win, it could be a tough round 1 matchup, though it will be at Levi Stadium for the 49ers in the wild card round. Now, let's talk about if the 49ers do get the 1 seed, which is if the Philadelphia Eagles lose and the 49ers win. If that's the case, albeit it likely is unlikely given the way the Eagles are heavily favored over the New York Giants, if it does happen, the 49ers would then get the bye, and they would first face an opponent in the divisional round as the 1 seed. Who could that opponent be? Now, let's expect that the Eagles are going to be not the Eagles. Let's expect the Vikings, the 2 seed, to win against the 7 seed, whoever that may be, and the 3 seed to win against the 6 seed, which would mean the 49ers would face the winner of the 4-5 game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the 4 seed. They're locked in. But the 5 seed, in this situation, if the Dallas Cowboys beat the Washington Commanders, they would actually overtake the Philadelphia Eagles, who lost in this scenario, for the NFC East. The Eagles would then drop to 5, and the 49ers would face the Eagles in the divisional round should they win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If they lose, they'd face the Buccaneers in this situation. But remember, playoff seeding in the NFL, you go against whoever the lowest seed is. So if the 6 seed wins, meaning if the New York Giants defeat whoever the 3 seed is, which will be the Minnesota Vikings in this scenario, they make it. If the 7 seed wins defeating the Dallas Cowboys, the 49ers play them. That's how it works. But likely, you face the 5 seed or the 4 seed, could be the Eagles or the Buccaneers. So, several different situations for the 49ers if they make the divisional round in that situation, but they get full home field advantage throughout the NFC part of the playoffs. Until the Super Bowl, they get home field advantage, which would be a benefit because remember, last year they had to travel 3 different times to play 3 different games. That's a much different situation than not having to travel at all and playing in your own home field with your own fans in the arena. Now, the 49ers, their third situation. What is it? They could be the 3 seed. Now, this is likely one of the more unlikelier situations, but it very well could happen. The 49ers would have to lose to the Cardinals this weekend, and the Minnesota Vikings would have to win the game against the Chicago Bears, who are not starting Justin Fields this weekend. So, the Eagles, the Vikings, and the 49ers all are favored in their matchups this weekend. The 49ers would have to lose, Vikings would have to win, and the Vikings would be the 2 seed in this situation. That's the clearest way for the 49ers to face an opponent because there is no controversy as to who's the 6 seed. The New York Giants are locked into the 6 seed. If the 49ers are the 3 seed, they'd face the Giants in the first round. Now, some may argue the Giants are an easier opponent than potential Packers or then potentially facing the Eagles in the second round. That could be true. That could be true. Very, very true. But the 49ers do risk that third, that I guess it's the third game because the wild card divisional they'd risk losing out a home appearance because you could face the 3 seed in the second round. You could face one of the top seeds in the championship round. So you lose 2 extra home games if you're the 3 seed, the potential of 2 extra home games, and you lose the potential of 1 extra home game as the 2 seed. So that's how the playoffs will work out. Now the 49ers, all we know right now is they're going to face at least one home playoff game. That's what we know right now. Not too much else is clear at the moment. We'll see how it unfolds, but that's what Week 18 is for. And really, it's going to be a fun weekend of playoffs of NFL anticipation heading into the playoffs. A lot of playoff stuff still to work out. The 7 seed for the NFC and every other seed except for the 6 seed in terms of playoff seeding. AFC has a bunch of battles as well. So it's going to be very fun to see who ends up where, and what the playoffs will look like. But guys, that's going to do it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this small little video. Late night Niners, kind of pretty much. Well, over there on the West Coast or wherever you are, be West Coast, East Coast, Central Time. A little later than I normally go live, but hope you guys appreciated the show. Hope you guys appreciated the channel. And we will be back. But before I go, got to give a shout out to my guy, Terradome. Thank you so much for tuning in and appreciate the support from you and Bash, as well as Last Second Sports. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back very soon, hopefully tomorrow. I have the film review, just was waiting to upload it. We'll see when it goes. Will likely be tomorrow. Thank you guys so much. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.